Ever done that? Yeah, I think we're okay. It's going to
Good.
record to the cloud. Did you pick record to the cloud? Because I think that's the default.
Okay. If not, I'll post it and give it to you.
Okay. Oh, Satanique is here. How exciting. We've got my colleague from Sac State. How exciting is this? Well, welcome everyone. My name is Donna Smith and I'm a part of the math department's community of practice. And one of the things that came up at one of our talks was talking about different modes of assessment. And I was sharing about Dr. Nicholas Panasik. And I said, would it be nice to hear from him than me trying to repeat? Because I have a few links. And he said yes. So I'm so excited. So I just want to give a proper formal introduction. So let me just go back out to my notes. All right. And so here, Nick, I'm going to ask you if you could let them in while I'm reading.
Oh, yeah, sure. I can hit that admit button.
Okay. All right. So it turns out I'm really excited that Dr. Nick Panasik, I practiced it earlier and then I messed it up, Nick. I'm so sorry. Associate Professor of Biology Chemistry from Claflin University, shares on peer teaching using formerly called FlipGrid. Nick has received the National Science Foundation's Early Career Award. In addition, he's had several Teaching Excellence Awards, including being named a Distinguished Professor of South Carolina. He will include recent data, the methodology development, and how Flip has proven instrumental in helping student engagement, learning, and retention while building community and student confidence. He will also discuss how this method is a more authentic way of assessment in this day and age of cut and paste plagiarism and essay writing bots. So with that, I'd like to welcome Nick.
Thank you very much for having me here. I love talking about this stuff and sharing what me and some of my students have come up with. We found it to be pretty fun and effective. And so hopefully there'll be some kind of excitement there. But I really want to thank you for having me here and for spending the time to talk about this kind of stuff, because I know we're all really interested in finding new ways to connect with our students and maybe easier ways for us when it comes to grading, etc. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start this little PowerPoint venture. There's some video too as well, but let's get started here. Okay. So I call this a way of doing authentic feedback and assessment, because I've been finding a lot lately. So I teach a science course, and I realize there's a lot of different folks that teach a lot of different things here. But I teach a science course, which is content heavy. I found that asking lots of multiple choice questions really don't do anything. I think after 15 years of No Child Left Behind, what we've trained with all the standardized testing is humans to be really good at pattern recognition. And so what I found in my classes when I first started teaching, and I'd give out, these multiple choice exams that, wow, my students were learning, they're doing really well. And then when I would ask them, because I tried to make these more challenging tests, and I'd be like, oh, I thought this was kind of a trick question. How did you know to pick B? And I'd get these deer in the headlights look like, and what I found out is a lot of times it's just guessing based on words that they hear. So I went to what I thought would be more authentic, okay, all essay questions. And that worked pretty well for a while. I really got a better measure of learning. Some students are better at writing than others, as you know. And then there was a lot of cut and paste from the internet, especially if these were, assignments that they had to do offline. And so I wanted to come up with something different at the time that was a little bit more engaging. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
The volume? Okay, great. So, and that's a little bit what we came up with, is a little bit what I'll talk to you about. Part of it was developed in the National Science Foundation Early Career Award. They have this teaching component, the education plan. And so initially this started doing 1 or 2 of these in each class to try and see how it worked. And then when we hit COVID, I just tried to adapt it to all my teaching. But before I get into any of that, what I really want to find out is what you guys are most concerned about. So if you might want to share with me just a little bit, if some of you can speak up and tell me, why are you here today? What are your concerns in teaching? What are you hoping to get?
Hey, Nick, my name's Maddie, and I came because I've tried FlipGrid a couple of times, and both times I had a bad experience, but I keep hearing about it, and I know that they've been improving it and changes have been made. So I wanted to kind of see what the potential is before I, avoid FlipGrid for another semester.
Sure, gotcha. So we're looking at possibly potential here. What else?
Hi, my name is Luda, and I am in a similar situation. I have used FlipGrid a long time ago, and it was very clunky. I'm doing it after a long break. Again, this semester, there is less problem with technical issues, but they're still there. And I have a problem motivating some of the students to actually, embrace this modality. Some are super excited, and some are shying away and, trying everything they can to avoid it. So what do you do to motivate your students to be okay with this modality of interaction?
Okay, will do. What else? What are you guys concerned about in terms of teaching? Like, are you more concerned about engagement or retention? Self-confidence? Any other thoughts? Dan, what are you here for?
I'm just in panic mode. I've been back on ground for, I think, 4 semesters now, including summer session. And, all I can say is what I've done in the past isn't working anymore. So I'm just in a basic panic mode. I want to soak up anything I can to see what else is available, see how I can change things. And I don't even know what my direction is. I'm just all ears and ready to soak things in.
Gotcha. So I put a couple things down, at least when I was in panic mode, because I had never taught online before. So when we switched there, I was in total panic mode and kind of at a loss for what to do. But there was something that I had done while I was on ground that actually worked pretty well. At the time, when we all hit COVID, it was really hard to get engagement, right? Because they're staring at this little screen and, probably they're walking away if they got their cams on. So I was worried about engagement. I was worrying about learning and retention. Also assessment, because again, especially if you're doing an online course, you have no idea how, even if you got like the lockdown browser that doesn't let them go to any other things, they have a phone, they have 3 other devices that they can go to. So that wasn't, incredibly worrisome. I was also worried about, can I teach the critical thinking? What about, if my assessments, if I can cheat on my assessments, what about the whole issue of academic integrity? So those were my basic concerns. And what I found in kind of doing what I'm going to talk about is that one can also add into the mix other things to be concerned about that you can get positive results with. So like self-confidence, for example, true mastery over a topic, and even depth of knowledge. You can really shoot for that. And it doesn't matter whether it's online or on ground. I use it in both formats. And the other big benefit, which I never really thought about when I was teaching, because I was just worried about the engagement and the learning retention, was building things like a sense of community as well amongst the students, where they're all kind of into each other and paying attention to each other and responsive and learning from each other. And, it sounds all crazy ideal, but I never thought that I could actually get to that stage, especially if I was doing online. Maybe, if we're all in a classroom, we could build up that community, maybe I was thinking, but really never found a way to do it. And then on top of all of this, my biggest concern was, okay, if I'm going to try some other kind of assessment, I really want the grading to not be so cumbersome. And so hopefully what we'll talk about today is going to be something that can address all these issues. What I'm talking about here is peer teaching. Forget the FlipGrid part. It's just the idea of when the student becomes a teacher, not the teacher, because you want to stay the teacher. You're the one who knows the content. Okay. But the ability of doing this with students is they start to synthesize what you've taught them on any particular topic. And then they try and teach it, try and explain it to their peers. I have them make a video recording, and this is where Flip is going to come in. But then again, that's just a tool. It doesn't have to be Flip. Although I find it fairly easy to work in this particular format. So the idea here is you're making the student become a teacher, but they're not replacing you. A lot of folks, and I remember I tried to do this too, you know, oh, we're going to have some group projects. I want you 5 people to research this topic and you'll present to the class and teach us on that topic. Well, we all know that doesn't work very well. Some groups do better, some groups do worse, but nobody covers the topic in all the detail that you want and all the nuances you want. And it ends up kind of being a time waster. Yeah, it gets students involved a little bit, but that's not really a way to teach a content-driven course that's got a lot of content over time. So instead of changing the way that you teach, don't change your teaching. Keep your lectures the same, teach them in the best fashion that you normally do. You're good at what you do when it comes to explaining and teaching things. Keep all of that the same. Encourage them to take their notes, ask questions. I like to assign one person, and this is actually, I have it a graded thing, where they're responsible for taking notes for the class and then posting them on our LMS. And they get points for that, and it rotates around to different students throughout the course. And then they can go back to that and see somebody's well taken notes.
Repeat that again? Could you repeat what you just said again? I wasn't.
Oh, it's something, it's not the peer teaching part, but it's kind of associated with it. It's this idea of making a class scribe where you ask students, you know, okay, every lecture, somebody's going to be the class scribe. You come up with a sign-up sheet, or you assign who it's going to be, and they have to take notes for the class and post them on Moodle, and they'll get graded. They'll get some points for that. Now, some students aren't very good at taking notes, but this encourages them to try and get better. Other people are really good at taking notes, and the whole class benefits because here's a good set of notes. And I usually put it in a discussion forum, and I give extra points if folks can add on to the notes, the stuff that wasn't there that's helpful. I'll give them a couple points here and there for that. So it's nice for you to teach what you want to teach and then have whatever notes on the side. And then here's where the new step comes in. You change the assessment. So at the end of the week, after my week of lectures, I'm talking about whatever. For whatever that key concept is that I've talked about that's been leading up to it all week, I try to do this thing called peer teaching. And here, what students have to do, so this is every week, they have to upload a video of themselves teaching that concept to the rest of the class. And they're going to have to go back over the notes, of my lecture and notes of the class scribe or whatever. Maybe they'll go on YouTube or look in their book, but they're going to have to come up with a 4 to 10 minute video where they're teaching that topic to the rest of the class. They're not in class doing it. They're recording this video, and this is where they're going to post it. And this is where FlipGrid comes in. FlipGrid platform is nice for managing a lot of different videos. So right here, I've got one page of FlipGrid. Once you sign up, you can create different groups, one group for each class. And so I have a bunch of different classes. I do this in all my classes now. And so if you select on one particular class, I can expand it up. This is my protein structure and function class. Here are all the topics. These are all the questions. that I'll ask over the course of the semester. And again, I do one a week. If you blow up one of these questions, here's my question on molecular dynamics. I'm sure nobody here knows anything about molecular dynamics. You don't need to. You have your own content questions about what you think is really important for students to know, what you really want to get them to get out of your course. So you set it up, you tell them, okay, over the weekend, it's Friday, the FlipGrids have gone live, record something over the weekend. I usually don't give them a lot of time to do it. I give them 3 or 4 days because I like to start grading them by the next week. But that's up to you. And so they record their videos and post them up on FlipGrid. And the way you do the settings, you make it so when they upload a video, nobody else can see it. It's just private. So they'll see the question. It'll be a really easy prompt. They'll press a button, their camera will activate, and they can just start talking and recording their video. If they want to throw that out and do another take, it's pretty easy for them to do. There's also some things that let them, add pictures and, PowerPoints or whatever, if they want to get that in depth. So that's the main first step. The second thing, which is a really big part of this, is what I call step 2, which is the personalized and strategic feedback. Okay, so what I'm going to do once they've uploaded.
Let me interrupt you real quick. One question is, do all students get to present on the same topic each week, or do you give them
all students do the same question? Because remember, you're teaching this content, and in my class, this is actually the only assessment I use, except for a couple tests. But this is the main. Instead of assignments, I've switched to this to a fairly large extent, and I'll show you why in just a second. But yeah, everybody does the same question every week. And that's kind of key to it. And so in step 2, what I'm going to do when it's time to watch the video, I'm going to go ahead and bring up their little FlipGrid video. I'm showing you that here. And then I bring up a Zoom window and I put that right next to it. And then I tell Zoom I want to record my screen. And so I hit play on their video and I start watching their video, but I'm recording myself watching it. And so when they say something really good, I can pause the video and say, hey, that's great. What you said right there, you got it right on the nose. Or if they say something that's incorrect, I can pause it and tell them, well, you've got a little problem with your thinking here. It works this way or it works that way, et cetera, et cetera. And then this response that I'm going to send them will only go back to that student. Now, I'm just going to show real quick here. This is just a little sample.
Great.
Now, when you say the binding substrate, this is a little bit too far. Hi, Justice. Let's see if I can help you out on how enzymes catalyze reactions.
Hello, class. My name is Justice Bell, and I'm here to discuss enzymes and how they catalyze reactions.
Can you hear the volume on this okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Enzyme is a protein that
Okay, you don't need to
catalyzes
hear all that, but I'm
reaction.
going to go
And
just
it
a
does-
little bit further. So here is actually the binding substrate. Actually,
of the binding substrate.
now when you say the binding substrate, actually a better way to say that, let me bring this picture up. So here is, so the point I'm trying to make here is that at any point you can stop, you can have a graphic, you can really do whatever you want to kind of bring home, what the correct message is that you want them to have, and then give them, send them that feedback. And I actually have a video online going through all the steps of how to make that, how to set your Zoom window up and so you can record it and send it. You upload your response, the video you make in Zoom, you upload that into FlipGrid, and then they get it through FlipGrid. I recommend when you do something like this, you can establish a rubric, for your questions, at least when you start, figure out what are the things that you want them to make sure that they touch upon when they talk about the topic, that you're having them teach. And you can check them off as you listen. I'm so used to doing these questions that I don't really have to work with one of these rubrics, but here's an example, like this is a question on describing the hydrophobic effect for one of my biochemistry classes. And they really have to mention all 8 of these points if it fits a perfect answer. Somewhere in their discussion, they have to talk about it. So if they get them all, I'm going to give them a 90%. If they're missing 1, I'll give them a B. If they're missing 2, I'll give them a C, etc. And then I'll give them a bump if they have visuals, or if they've got props, or they're doing some kind of active demonstration, you know, something that they're doing that shows effort and they're snazzing it up. And I'll take points off if they're doing something inaccurate. But I could kind of do this in my head while I'm watching the video. And by the end, I got a pretty good sense of whether they got an A or a B. So I'll have my grade book up while I'm watching it. And when I'm done watching it, I send them the video, and then I put a grade in the grade book, and I'm on to the next thing. That's all the grading. So if they've got a 5-minute video, it's taken me 5 minutes, plus maybe I got a minute of comments. So that's about 6 minutes to grade that. I didn't have to spend any time writing anything down. I just stuck a letter grade in my thing, and I was on to the next one. Bam, bam, bam. You just walk and you do a bunch of videos in a row. If they're 5-minute videos, you can do, you know, if they take 6 minutes in an hour, you can do about 10 of them. So you could parse it up over a couple of days and get through a whole class that way. But then that's all the grading I do for my class for that sort of thing. Now, here's the follow-up though. So they've put up a video, nobody else has seen it. You've gone through, given them feedback, put in the grade. Now, if they get an A, I'll make that video visible to the rest of the class. And this is where the fun starts to happen. This is where the transformation starts to happen. Now, all of a sudden, you know, once the due date is passed, all of a sudden some videos start coming up on their screens because they're now visible. I'm only making those videos visible for the student that got everything right, because I don't want them to misteach anything in the course. I want to make sure that the message that they're getting out is correct. And what I found is this has had really amazing benefits. The students' videos are now available for other students to study from, okay? And, you know, we all like to think we're great teachers, but sometimes for some learning styles, I stink at teaching it, okay? By having other students try and explain the same concepts, sometimes they come at it from a different angle or have a different style or talk about in a language that's more accessible to their peers. And so now, instead of just learning from me, now they have 3, 4, 6 videos that they can watch from their peers kind of talking and explaining it. And sometimes, you know, the students say, well, I had a hard time with this, so I looked at it this way. And so they've got this big repository and stuff. The other thing I'd have to say is, you know, those videos, that repository becomes a really good bank of stuff to study for an exam. Oh, what was that stuff on the hydrophobic effect? I can, you know, maybe you've recorded your lecture and they can go back to your lecture and find that little, you know, 10-minute thing where you talk about it. Or they can go up here. These are the important concepts of your class. So hopefully they're going to be fairly relevant. And then they're watching this from other students. Okay. One of the things I think you've heard this phrase before from other teachers is I never really understood a topic until I had to teach it, right? And students, I've heard students say this to me a number of times after doing this. And, you know, the idea here is in order to get up and do this video, they know they're going to be, possibly some of their peers are going to see it. So they want to do a good enough job so they don't look like an idiot. So they have to prepare. They got to think about what they want to say. They got to think about how they want to say it. And a lot of times when they're piecing through the material, they realize something's confusing them about the material. So they have to resolve that problem in their own understanding. And, you know, I always encourage them, you'll get a couple extra points if you've got, you know, like a little picture you've drawn or, you know, a slide or something like that, animation, whatever. And a lot of times students will put effort. For them, this is kind of a completely different modality to talk about the topic. You know, in science, it's usually writing, maybe doing experiments and stuff, but videos and video editing is a completely different part of the brain that they're now trying to access the information through. And a lot of this generation, you know, they got their YouTube, they got their TikTok. Some of them already have really good video editing skills and like Gomeno, like this is part of their channel and their content. Others, they get introduced to that through this. And I've had a number of students that after doing our first class with, you know, all these FlipGrids, they created their own TikTok channel. They're not using FlipGrid, but they're really into editing the videos and all that kind of stuff. And so it brings in kind of a certain amount of excitement. But again, when they put up that video, think of it as their best way of framing the topic and explaining it. I know that when I was a student, when I would ask a question, I would usually be like, okay, so I think it works this way and that way. Is that right? And then the teacher would say yes or no or whatever, kind of to validate my way of thinking or to correct it. Some students do that in class. If you think about your average classes, when you're sitting in a classroom, I'm not talking about online, I'm just talking in real in-person classrooms, there's usually just a few students that'll ask questions. And from class to class, it's often the same students. Now, some students will come after class and ask you a few questions. And usually those are those same students. And then maybe some will come to your office hours. But if you add all those together, that's not all the students. There's a large portion of students that never come for a question during class or after class or to office hours. And here, they're getting the benefits of asking the question. Here, they're telling you what their conception is of the topic, of how it works, and then you're giving them direct feedback on what they said. And it's their best version of that. Because I know when I'm in class asking the question, I'll try and figure out the words to say what I'm thinking, but it doesn't always come out clearly. But when they're putting these videos together, they can do take one, take two, they think about it, they have time. And so what they put up is kind of their best version of it. And so that's what I'm responding to. And so if it's incorrect, you know, then they'll get that. But also, you know, even when I was asking a question in class, if I phrased it well, sometimes I'll forget what exactly did I say? How did I put that? And here it's on a video, so they can rewind and see what they said and then see your comment. And it's permanent, and they got it there all the time. So I think there's a lot of ways which this thing is pretty cool. The other thing that it really does is this thing with self-confidence, because if you've worked on this video and it goes public, well, everybody knows the only ones that go public are the ones that have A's. And so all of a sudden it's a source of pride because, oh, one of my videos went public, and I'll talk about this at length in a little bit. But before I go on and on and on about, you know, how cool this is, I kind of want you to hear from some other students to hear their version of what they think about FlipGrid. So I'll start with Anshel.
Hi everyone, my name is Anshel Ross, and today I will be talking about how FlipGrid has helped me. So initially, I used to get a lot of anxiety recording these as I'm not that big on public speaking. However, as time passed during the course, it helped me gain confidence in what I was studying, and being able to see my FlipGrids get posted also helped me build confidence and made me a little bit more comfortable, not only speaking in front of the camera, but also being able to teach others the concept that I was studying. So FlipGrid has helped me build confidence in my public speaking, and it's also helped me study more efficiently, because it's one thing to study for exam, but it's another thing to study so that you master the material and are able to teach it to others. So that's how FlipGrid has helped me, and I hope that it's helped you all the same way.
So the source of these videos, at the end of the class, I've asked them to do a short video on if FlipGrid has helped and how.
Hi everybody, my name is Damian George, And for the last FlipGrid of this year, I wanted to say that I think FlipGrid has helped me. First off, it's helped me learn a lot of stuff, like actually learn it instead of memorize a bunch of stuff. It's actually helped me learn and actually dig deep on how to actually study and actually be able to learn something in order to teach it to somebody, because you can't just teach anything to somebody unless you know it and can talk a lot about it. So I had to do a lot of research. I had to do a lot of my own working in order to be able to keep making videos and keep being like interactive and informative at the same time. But overall, I like the FlipGrid. I like how I could be able to teach not my students, but teach my classmates different types of stuff.
Notice how he called them teach my students.
I feel like it was a good experience. I've never like had this experience before, so it was a really good experience overall, and I enjoyed doing it. And best part about being on FlipGrid is having your video posted, because it was good. That's probably the best parts about it, because then you just be like, yeah, that was a good video. But I appreciate it overall. It was really good.
I love it. I love it.
I'll do one more. Let's see what else I got here. Mindell.
I would say that the FlipGrids really did help me because it basically reiterated the concepts that we learned in class, and it helped me just basically reteach myself if I missed a detail, or I was like, oh, okay, I did not know this, or oh, I forgot about this. The process of preparing myself to teach this basically helped me become more confident in the material, and it also helped me to see what I needed to work on for myself during like concepts that I didn't fully understand, or with concepts that I was like, oh, okay, this is how this actually works, and it's not the way I remembered it. Also, the way I prepared for the FlipGrids, I had to write down and like rewrite the notes, and it really helped me organize the steps of the processes. So, like when we had these in-class quizzes, I was able to answer them because of everything that I had written down. So it just basically reinforced everything that I have done before for those quizzes and for these FlipGrids. The teaching of like watching other people's videos basically helped me basically kind of helped me better understand the concepts of some concepts that I didn't understand, or some FlipGrids that I didn't do as well on. Watching other people's FlipGrids helped me basically understand it more. So like, oh, okay, so that's what they meant by this question, or that's what this meant by inserting this gene into that. So I would definitely say the FlipGrids definitely did help me, and it's something that I do look forward to in my other classes. I never knew that FlipGrid would be this used this way. Usually, when in my other classes, when we post FlipGrids, we just post them and then that's that. But these ones, since we were doing them continuously, it helped basically reinforce the concepts, helped improve my teaching skills, helped improve my confidence in the subjects and in the concepts that were taught in class, and basically just help reiterate those.
Okay, let's get to some actual data. Okay, it's nice to talk all generally about it and hear reflections, but let's look at some actual hard data. So the data that I'm going to present here was collected from two courses, one with 47 students, the other with 14. They were assessed with pre and post questionnaires. We did some recorded interviews that have been coded and scored, student evaluations, and exam scores. So that's where this data is going to be coming from. We're looking for impacts at sense of community in the class, sense of self-efficacy within the discipline, the sense of confidence with the topics, the feelings about one-on-one instruction time, and then most importantly, the learning outcomes. So let's go ahead and take a look at data. And one of the questions, so in their responses, the sample size for this is 47, 72% responded that they felt the use of peer teaching made them feel more engaged in the course. So this is them saying they do feel more engaged because of it. About 55% said they felt that it created a better sense of connection with the teacher. And about 2/3 felt they learned the topic better when they had to teach it. It's kind of what you might expect for that. In terms of sense of community, 98% of the students reported a feeling a strong sense of pride when their flip went public. And I kind of dug deep a little bit and to find out their motivations for doing the FlipGrids. And about a quarter of them said their primary motivation was teaching others. 25% reported their primary motivation was to show their knowledge for the teacher. And about half of them just said it was to learn the topic better. That's why they enjoyed enjoyed doing it. Now, one of the things I hadn't mentioned in the beginning of the course, actually the first flip video that I have them record is an introduce yourself video. And here I have the prompt here where they're supposed to introduce themselves, tell them their name, their major, what their vocational interests are, what their hobbies are, that kind of thing. And those are automatically visible to everybody in the class, okay? And do this for a couple of reasons. One, I want to get to know the students, but now other students can learn about other students. And what you're going to find is as people start posting videos and they go live, they get an A, and they keep having their FlipGrids posting, you'll see that students go back to watch that person's introductory video to see, well, who is this person that's explaining this so well? I also like to watch that first video, this introduce yourself video, before I grade my first flip video. Right before I record myself teaching it, I'll watch their introduce yourself video. So I kind of know where they're coming from, what their career goal is. So when I'm responding, if I can think of an example that applies to them, they really feel like I know them because they're, oh yeah, even though they did that maybe 2 weeks ago. So I find that helps just a little bit. But I mentioned this because we're going to go back to the data and I'm going to go look at the data on this flip video. So on the introduction flip
data on the video, and you tell me if you prefer, I should have asked you this up front, my fault, to respond to the questions as they're coming up or later. Because there's
are there questions coming? Please let me know when there are questions along the way. Sure. I'm not looking at the chat, so please.
I can do that for you. All right. So this question is from Maddie. Nicholas, do you have any advice for instructors with 100 students? Cut the video length down from 4 to 10 minutes to perhaps 3 to 4, or only have them do videos every other week or something else. They mentioned earlier that they have 4 classes with a cap of 24. So they have 100 students. They said they'd be grading about 10 hours per week if they could get down and be as fast and as efficient as you are. So maybe some suggestions for someone that maybe has that many students.
Okay, so my largest class was 47 students. That's typically the kind of range between 40 and 50 students in a class, but then I only have one section of that class. It meets 3 days a week, but I'll only have one section of that class. When you're getting up to 100 students, that's tough. I would probably not do the shorter ones. I would do them less often. Figure out what's the maximum time you want to spend on doing your grading, and then do that many videos, but give them at least 5 minutes, because if it's just a short little answer on something, you're really not delving into their understanding or their mastery of the topic. It's got to be something that's a little bit challenging for them to answer. It can't just be like a simple answer to a multiple choice question. It's got to be something where they're teaching a whole concept. So space those out in the semester would be one of my biggest suggestion, but not cutting the length too much. But 100 students is a killer.
Thanks. And I only start with that many, so I have some students will drop, so it will get less over the course of the semester. But oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Yeah, we have our classes split into units, so I thought perhaps like 1 per unit, but I got have less chance to kind of practice. I want to acknowledge that you're not saying keep doing everything else you already do and add this to your plate. So I understand we would be saving grading time by introducing
correct
in lieu of others. But for those of us that are first going to experiment with this, I'm sure we don't want to go all in on it right away. So we probably
Oh, I hear you. And I would suggest doing it with a more limited kind of a trial before You went fully with it. I really like it in terms of my primary means of grading, because I'm face to face with the student. I get a really good idea of whether or not they, you know, if they get it while I'm talking to them. And so the grade that I'm putting in on that topic, I'm fairly confident is pretty reflective of their knowledge. In the feedback I'm giving them, I'm really hoping is going to sink in because it's targeted. And then later on, and I'll show you some data on that, how it affects the regular standard exams that I give.
To follow up on that, so since you're doing the peer videos, and you are giving some exams, what other assignments are you giving? In other words, what have you cut out so that it really affords the time to maybe address Maddie's issue?
Okay, so for my biochemistry class, for example, of which, you know, this is a lot of the data is drawn for with 47 students, every week would be a problem set that might have up to 20 questions. I don't do multiple choice questions. I only do long answer questions. So that's a lot of looking at each answer and then writing responses to each answer, because they got to get feedback. And what I didn't like about that is I find myself writing the same thing over and over and over again. I guess I could cut and paste on that, but then sometimes I'm wondering, you know, is this cut and paste from somewhere on the internet? And I'll put it in Google, and sure enough, it is. And so I just got rid of those.
I got it. So you just have the exams and the videos. Got it.
So as folks have questions, please interrupt me as I'm going, because I'm not really looking at the chat, but I like the interactivity, and if it's pertinent, please, or not pertinent, just please ask.
One more follow-up. Luda wanted to know what portion of their overall grade depends on these video assignments.
So our final is worth 15% of the grade. Our midterm exam ends up being about close to a little bit under 10% of the grade. And then the rest comes from the FlipGrids.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's totally a different way of at least that's the way I like to implement it. I like grading these better because when I'm grading an assignment and writing stuff back, I feel like I'm grading. When I'm responding to a FlipGrid, I feel like I'm teaching.
Yes.
I really like that. I like teaching. I don't like grading. And so I spend all of my time teaching. And so I can stay jazzed about it because I'm looking at a student's face and explaining to them what they're not getting. And so it's more rewarding for me during that process.
Yes. You might answer this later, so if you want to defer it, that's fine. But another question is there any resistance from students?
I will get to that in just a bit. So I will defer that question. But yeah, the answer is at first, yes. But I'll go into more detail. Some folks, are not keen on the idea of anybody, seeing a video of them. And I'll actually, tell students, if you absolutely don't want people to see your videos, just email me and I won't post them even if they're an A. But I tell them, try and stick with it for a little bit and see. And some students, because they knew it would only get posted if it was A work, were less nervous about it. And I've got some of those, I don't know if I played that one or not. There's a few testimonials where they talk about how they were really trepidatious about, speaking in front of an audience, but by the end of it, they weren't anymore. Because what happens is once their videos start, if they get an A and they start posting to everyone else, everyone watches them. I had a student who was really worried about, speaking in front of others, but she was going to give it a try. And I think in the second or third video, she started getting stuff that was being posted. And then students started asking her questions, emailing her or asking after class, stuff about the class, or when they're working on their FlipGrid, on their next one, asking them concept questions. And she did not realize why that was happening. And at one point she asked, and they're like, well, you make these fabulous videos. You seem like you totally understand it. Her confidence level in public speaking shot up like totally. And by the end, that was actually Anshel that did that first video that I showed you.
Yeah.
And now she uses videos for a lot of stuff. But let's go back to some of the hard data. So one of the things I noticed about this introductions flip, you can see the number of views on a video. And when you start going back and looking at the introductions, I noticed that the total number of views for certain students' videos kept increasing. And so I was like, well, isn't that interesting? We're 4 weeks into the course, who's going back and looking at, these introduction videos? And by the end of the course, 60% of the students had more views than the number of students in the class. That meant that people went back more than once. And it turns out that those 60% of students were ones that had their FlipGrids reposted as A's. So for the 50 introduction videos, I actually start out with, well, anyways, for the introduction videos, there were 2,600 total views. The average views per student intro was about 53. For the top 7 FlipGridders, it was 88. So, and it ranged anywhere from 49 to 111. Again, there's only 40, by this point, there's only 47 students in the class. So that means people have gone back time and time again to find out who is this person that I keep watching and learning from. And this is where that sense of community starts coming, because then they start emailing each other and asking each other questions to help them with that material. And the person that's doing so well gets that confidence boost, that sense of mastery, but it's in the data too. So if you ask them about their self-efficacy, in this case, it's just their ability to understand biological concepts. There are 80% of the students, almost 80%, said they felt more confident in their ability to understand the concepts. About 75% said that they felt a greater sense of mastery and confidence in science overall. You can see some of the other 20% found it very challenging, and there was a student that really didn't like it. Then I asked the question, do you see yourself as more of a science person? And I don't describe what I mean by a science person. This is a self-identification question. So whatever it means to the student. And about 60% of the students saw themselves more in that kind of profession than they did before. And I think a lot of that comes from this sense of mastery. I also wanted to look at their feelings about their interaction with the professor, specifically about one-on-one time with their professor. And so I gave them this question, and they had different options what they could choose. The use of FlipGrids made me feel like I had less one-on-one time with the professor than, and I'm having them compare this to an on-ground class, because at the time this one was being done online. About 43%, they felt like they had the same one-on-one time with the professors in on-ground class. And for about 50%, they said they had more one-on-one time with the professor than an on-ground class. Now this is online. And so I thought that was a really, really kind of exciting thing, because that's about 90% of the students are feeling that they're getting as much interaction as an on-ground when you're just doing something completely online. And I think that's because for every topic you do, you touch with each student and you give them feedback that's tailored to them and hear what they have to say. I have to say, in my 15 years of teaching, the first time I did this, I had never known my class so well, because every single student I had seen multiple times try and explain something. I might only see him for 5 minutes, and give a 2-minute response, but every week I'm seeing him again, and I see the progression. By the end of the videos, I'm like, wow, I start trying to talk about other things that aren't just the material. I'd be like, yeah, this video is great. You're really mastering the concepts better than when you did before. I'll start talking about, their video quality or things like that. And it feels like you make this relationship with them, which is really, I thought was really, really cool. So where are we now? So we did one-on-one time with professor. So I really think that that's kind of a neat thing. You know, and this goes back to this idea of the students asking the questions in class or coming up after class or office hours. And this really kind of hits at that because all of these students gets, you know, about 10 minutes on the topic face to face with their instructor, even though it's mediated through these videos. Now on actual learning assessment. So what are the teaching outcomes? What are the learning outcomes? And so here what we did is we compared 10 exam questions. This is on the final exam. We picked questions that we think were equivalent difficulty. We looked at 5 questions where they had done a FlipGrid for it, and then 5 where I covered material, but I didn't do a flip on that material. But they're, you know, I still taught on it, still told them they expect to know it and such. And what we saw is for the things that where there was a FlipGrid associated, there was a 12% increase in the grade on those questions versus the ones that didn't have a flip component. And in a second course where n equals 14 number of students, about a 13% increase. And I've done this actually since I've collected this data. I haven't had a chance to put it in PowerPoints. In general, I see about a grade to a grade and a half, between 10 and 15% increase on the exam question. So now they're writing it out, or they're, you know, responding to an exam question. Again, I don't do multiple choice, so not sure how it affects that. But in terms of confidence with material, now I do a pre-test and a post-test in this data. So this is when the class just started, and then this is at the end of after the course is over. Rate your ability to understand biochemical concepts from 1 to 10. And so it goes from 7.3 to 9.5. So there's an increase in confidence to understand the concepts. Do a similar kind of comparison with rating their own ability to verbally describe stuff, going from 6.4 to an 8.2, which is almost a 20% increase in their confidence in their ability. In terms of their conceptions of how much time they thought they would get in an online course versus how much they actually got, it surpassed their expectations by about 20%. And then this was another question I thought was interesting to ask. I had asked them, you know, how effective our online courses are at teaching you. And so, you know, this was for an online course. So, you know, pre-test, they said 6.5. By the end of the course, it had increased by 10%. So, you know, I know some students are kind of iffy on the online thing, but at least this is kind of suggestive, you know, that maybe they had a good experience and they're more open to the online teaching. But again, I think the big data is in, you know, the actual content knowledge increase by a whole letter grade is awesome. You know, I love this because I think it's a more authentic way of doing assessment. I don't have to worry about the plagiarism. I get to assess their most rehearsed version of their understanding. I get to see it in their own words and thoughts. So I don't have to worry about cut and paste, and I can give direct teaching feedback, and I don't have to worry about AIs, which is now a big thing when it comes to essay questions that I'm really struggling with, because AIs can write pretty darn good. It seems to suggest there are benefits to well-being with student engagement, building the sense of community for the class, and it definitely is increasing confidence and the depth of knowledge. And for the classroom, it provides benefits too, because you have these alternate explanations, this library of videos, and it's easy to grade. I like it. So, you know, one of the things that I would suggest if any of you try anything with your teaching, do this data collection. Come up with a pre-test and a post-test of whatever questions you think your techniques may impact, and then collect the data pre and post. And if your strategies work, if that's material for a possible grant or a possible publication. So I'm really big on trying to collect data, encourage all of you on whatever you're trying, make sure to collect that data, because you'll have a powerful story to tell if things kind of work. I do have some videos online of how to set up Flip, and then how to give the feedback using the Zoom, how I was doing it. But I am totally willing to entertain any questions that you might have.
I just want to make sure that the answer that I gave to a question is accurate. Kwame Ashen asked how many exams you gave, and I said it was a midterm and a final. And is that correct?
Yeah. I used to have more. I used to have, it ended up being 3 exams plus a midterm and a final, is what it used to be, plus all of I worked my students really hard. But I like the responses I get from this better than what I was getting before on the other stuff.
Okay. And then I had a question. Is it possible for you to share your slideshow, or?
Of course, absolutely. I would think it would be remiss of me not to.
And if you want, you can send it to me and I'll send it to
Yeah,
you.
I'll email it to you and you can do with it as you please.
Okay.
And then there'll be this recording as well. But anybody is free to reach out to me if you want help with this or want to talk with it. I'm happy to work one-on-one. We can even make some videos together. That's always good. I see a question coming up. Do I use it for in-person classes as well as online? Yes, I do. It's really made it a lot nicer because I'm still, for the kids that don't ask questions in class, I'm still getting to see them and hear what they have to say. And so, yeah, I do it in all my classes. In fact, so Claflin has just developed, now this is an online program, an online Masters of Biotechnology for Climate Change. We're going to be using this modus operandi for all of the courses involved in that for our assessment.
Then I have another question. In math, there's a lot of writing out of equations and solving problems. So I noticed in some of the videos, I saw students holding up pieces of paper. Have you used any kind of video where they can show their written work as they're working through a solution? Your
FlipGrid has a whiteboard that they can use. And so they can be working things out through the whiteboard. They can also just video. I got a lot of students video themselves writing it out. Sometimes they'll do the video with their phone and then just upload it to FlipGrid, as opposed to doing it off of a laptop. I think that's great for this kind of forum because as they're, as you're watching the video, them start writing stuff out, you can pause it and then annotate and draw the screen, and then unpause and then stuff goes on because you can annotate those videos and stuff. So I think that's kind of neat.
Perfect. And I put 2 links in the chat for the 2 videos on you creating the FlipGrid. So that's in the chat if people want to grab that. And then one last question. How did you pick what topic? I'm trying to formulate how I'm going to do this. And there's so much that I cover in a week. How did you narrow down?
So what I found at Claflin, when I'm teaching over the course of the week, yes, in biochemistry, you do cover a lot of topics, but they all kind of fit. I try to think in my mind, well, how does the thread fit over the course of the week? And then I try and pick a topic that touches a lot of different threads because I want to hear the student possibly mention these different threads. So I won't pick something simple. I'll pick something more complicated So there's a lot of things, it may come, details came from multiple days. I teach lecture 3 days a week. So hopefully in their answer, there'll be some stuff from the first day that I talked about the topic, and I'm still using that topic throughout the week, but I'm applying it to different things or talking about it in different tangential ways. So, one way to look at it is if you look on your syllabus and look at your learning outcomes, I'm sure we all have to, come up, what are the SLOs for the course? Just pick the SLOs. If these are going to be the only assessments, pick the SLOs. There you go. You got your grades and you're good to go. And you can even have it set up, if I know in Moodle you can do it, but in most LMSs you probably can, is if you attach your SLOs to certain grades, it'll generate a report at the end on exactly, how you're doing on your SLOs. We have to provide that as part of our performance review every year.
Michelle has her hand up.
Yes.
I do. Hi, Dr. Panasik. I hope I said your name correctly.
Nick.
And I teach agriculture and I have a biochem background, so I appreciate
Awesome.
that. I'm the distance learning coordinator, and I was wondering if you'd be, I know you said we could, share your slides and share your ideas and so on, but I was wondering if there may be a chance that I might be able to interview you and do some little videos about your data for some of the trainings that I do on a district-wide level. I think this is awesome.
That would be really fun. I'm
mentioned,
trying to stick this stuff into a publication and do some cool stuff with it. So maybe we can partner on a lot of things.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I also wanted to say, I mentioned in the chat that so we have an online review process for folks that are teaching online for the first time. And one of the biggest challenges we have is interaction between students and demonstration of interaction between faculty or the instructor and students. And I think that you have done a fabulous job of identifying a very effective and humanized way to do that. So I just appreciate you being here so much. And Donna, thank you so much for including me. And I'm sorry I popped in on your class yesterday when I was confused on what day this was. Sorry, girl.
Oh, you were the one. I heard about that.
I was the one.
So yeah, I strongly suggest, before all this other stuff, do that introductory video and then watch how other students interact with that, because that becomes, not all the students know each other. Some commute to class, and so they don't know half the class. Some are just really quiet, but it's a way for everybody else to know, well, who is this guy? Who is this person? And the fact that they're interested in looking at that makes them more receptive to what the person's saying. And if they're teaching your material, all the better.
All right. Well, I know the workshop is scheduled to go till 3:30. So if there's anyone that has more questions, I don't want to be the hog and ask them all, because I do have a few more.
Please, I'm really happy.
I have a couple of questions. Assuming that the links that Donna provided to your 2 YouTube videos might answer these questions, I just gonna confirm.
Sure.
The right way to set up the FlipGrid so that, for example, students' responses are not visible until you do make some of them visible. That is something addressed in that video too. Am I correct?
Yes, it is, but let me go ahead and share my screen once again, if I can. And let me pull in, let me go to FlipGrid here. Takes me in, no, this is taking me to my biochemistry course, but here's my other courses over here. But say I want to go ahead and post a topic here. I put in, here is my prompt question. I can set a time limit, from a variety of different options. I think 10 is the most. And then if I want, I can stick a picture with this. I could record a little video of me asking the question. I often do that just because I think it's fun. Often when I record my videos, I always like to record all of my videos using Zoom. I'll just create a Zoom room just for myself and record it because I like to play with the background. I like to just have a straight black background because I think it focuses. But then once you create the topic, you'll have, let's see, it'll say anybody can do this stuff here, but then you'll have a way to edit all of those features and let's see, where is there's a place for all of these things here, and I'm not seeing it right now.
Maybe settings. I think there's settings up in the right-hand corner.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So you can set whether people can do likes on videos, whether you can see the video count. You can also put a default onto whether or not they're moderated. So and whether they come in visible to everybody or not, those are all settings you can get in this settings page.
Okay. 2 more questions. If you teach online, how do you handle the closed captions? I know Flip does provide it, but I'm assuming, especially with a very technical language that biochemistry might use or any class you teach, it might not be very accurate. Is that something you need to deal with? To make sure your courses.
I haven't paid as much attention to that as I should. So some of the jargon terms do get kind of scrambled up, but I haven't tried very hard to address that yet. I'm hoping that the AIs that they use for the voice recognition are going to increase. I think a lot of them are getting a lot better. So I'm just kind of hoping that that'll get fixed at the back end.
And the last question for me, I'm assuming you are not using Flip inside of your course management system. It's a completely separate program. Students access. You don't have a pairing with any. I think you've mentioned Moodle. I guess your school uses Moodle, right?
Right. What I'll do is I'll put in my LMS and Moodle, I'll put a link to it, and you can make it so the link actually shows the little video prompt or whatever if you've got it, and so they can click on it, and then it takes them out of Moodle to FlipGrid, and then they can answer it. But yeah, it's they're not linked at this point. There isn't a tool I know of that links them.
And even though
thank you so much.
Thank you, Luda. Even though Flip does integrate with Canvas, every semester I always have 1 or 2 students and they can't get it to work. So it worked best for me when I used Flip, where I just sent them the link to the thing rather than embedding it. And even right now, we're taking a humanizing STEM course, and they even put that in there. Flip is having problems when it's embedded in humanized. No, they said problems if you're using a mobile device, which most students use a mobile device to record. So I don't do it inside of Canvas. I just have a link that they go out to.
Yeah, and
Hi.
Do it. I always suggest do it multiple ways. When you send out an email, also have it on Moodle, as a link or as a whatever. And hopefully one way it will work. If it doesn't, with another. Just ask for feedback back from your students to find out what is and what isn't working. And I've often contacted the people at Flip, and they usually have a good response time. But I haven't really had that many issues or that many students. I've just been lucky in terms of.
I am using Flip this semester, and I did it through Canvas when it's embedded inside of our LMS. And I do have a handful of students who constantly email me, and I could spend a lot of time trying to fix it or help them to find a way around. And it's pretty frustrating for them. They lose the point of what's the whole point if all I do is deal with technical issues, and I understand their frustration. Thank you, Donna, for that suggestion.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all very much for spending the time this afternoon to listen to all this. And if anybody ends up using any of this stuff, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help you with it. Love to chat with you about your experience. I'm sure there'll be things that you do that I could totally learn from, and I would very much appreciate that. I'm also interested in collecting data because I think it could be fun for all of us to publish on this kind of stuff. So I'm also open to working, in that arena as well.
That was great, Nick. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, take care, my friend.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks, Donna. I really appreciate it again.
Sure, thank you.
And if you do get any feedback, about this talk and stuff like that, if people liked it or not, please let me know, because I'm always looking to try and polish things up and find out if it's good or not. I hate boring people.
Everybody says thank you, and I think having the data with the 2 sets, and it was very thorough and very helpful. So thank you so much.
Okay, thanks
Yes,
a lot. Bye-bye.
absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.